Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Corey, better known as the C-Man, and I want to welcome you to another edition of the C-Man's Cinema Sitdown. I wanted to sit down and talk about this last night, but I did not sit on my couch and watch this on my TV. Being COVID-free and feeling much more like myself and being cleared to go back to work and given all the correct okays, I was like, we need to go venture out for this movie. This movie deserves to be seen on a big screen, and I still need to see it on a bigger screen. This is a definite IMAX watch. But being where I'm located, I'm very close to a 4DX theater, and something like this, if you can see it in 4DX, you gotta see it in 4DX. Oh, what a wild ride this movie was, and an even more wild ride when your chair is freaking moving around and vibrating and doing all the wonderful things that they do in 4DX. However, by the time I got home, I was pretty shot. So I've taken a good night's sleep. I think internally, while I was sleeping, I was thinking about all the things that I love about this movie, and I am very ready to talk about it. So let's not waste any more time, man. Why don't you pull up a chair, take a seat. You know what we're getting ready to talk about. We're getting ready to dive in spoiler-free into James Gunn's The Suicide Squad. And I gotta start. James Gunn, you son of a bitch, you crushed this movie. Like, I know a bunch of the actors have said, like, this was an impossible movie to make, and only James Gunn could make it. And there were lots of things, just hearing that statement based on just what we've seen in the trailers. I'm like, yeah, James Gunn is probably the only guy that could have pulled off what they're going after. I mean, to have Starro be your main antagonist without completely being your main antagonist, right? But he's what you set up for the third act. Like, that's just insanity. Like, I don't think there's any comic book fan that ever thought that we would see Starro, let alone see Starro as wonderful as we saw Starro in this movie, like, ever on a big screen. And that's the kind of weird, big jumps and risks that someone like James Gunn is willing to take and then can back it up because he is a phenomenal filmmaker. I've been a fan of James Gunn pre-Guardians of the Galaxy. Like, I just think the dude has a wonderful eye, he knows how to tell a story, and he has a very unique style to the way in which he does things. And seeing that all, come together for Guardians was a massive level up for Gunn, and it was something like none of us had seen. I mean, again, another property that no one thought could be done. Like, Guardians of the Galaxy, you're going to make a movie of Guardians of the Galaxy, and James Gunn turned that into one of the most special franchises in the MCU. However, I do think that because, Disney kind of locks everything down to PG-13, although I think we're supposed to get a rated R Deadpool. We'll see if that actually happens. But I think you do detract from some of the things that Gunn can do. And when you give him the ability to just do any and everything that comes up in his head, wow, is it magical. And unfortunately, I don't think we were going to see James Gunn go back to Marvel after Guardians 3. I think he has found a home here with the Suicide Squad and with DC. I mean, if DC was smart, you get this guy doing lots of things. Not too many things, but you want him continually involved in the, the DCEU as it moves forward. Because, wow, dude, like, after you watch the Suicide Squad, whether you like it or don't like it, you're not going to be able to deny how talented a filmmaker James Gunn is. Like, this thing technically is an absolute marvel, and pun intended there. But it's a masterpiece. Like from a technical standpoint, what James Gunn does, from his pacing to his storytelling to, honestly, the biggest thing that pops in this movie is the way he moves the camera. Like, if you thought you'd seen James Gunn do camera tricks before, wow! Like, he has some really awesome camera tricks in this movie, and starts with the opening of the movie. Like, the very first thing you see, you're thinking you're looking at something one way, and then all of a sudden the perspective changes and you see what it actually was, and I swear to God, my head exploded. I was like, if this is what James Gunn is doing in the first 2 minutes of this movie, like, you are going to get a lot of special things. And the way that he's able to blend, visual effects and CGI into the movie. I mean, Starro the Conqueror shows up at the end of this thing. Spoilers, in case you haven't been watching, trailers. But when he shows up, like, it's a lot of CGI. There's a lot of CGI throughout the entire movie. I mean, when people are getting killed, their rat catcher has all these rats. That's all CGI stuff. However, the way Gunn blends it with the practical, holy cow, man. Like, if you've seen any of the behind-the-scenes stuff on this movie, the practical lengths they went to do most of the stunts. Like, if you didn't need to do something in CGI, James Gunn didn't do it in CGI. I mean, that whole section with the water coming through that office as like that whole building is falling, like, that's all practical effects, you know, for the most part, blended with some really nice CGI. But like, you have that practical base to build off of. And I've always said this: anytime you've got a lot of CGI or you have big things that need to happen CGI wise, you need to have practical visual effects to balance it out. It makes it feel real. It makes it feel tangible. And that's exactly what Gunn does with this movie. And the set pieces that he sets up are just, some of them are absolutely insane. And like, to think that the actual actors and stunt people are in there doing most of it. Wow. And then the choreography. I gotta look into who he had as his stunt choreographer, but holy cow, man, the action sequences in this movie are phenomenal. Harley, as we've seen, has that shot where she's spinning with the two guns. That whole sequence is, it's so good. And Margot Robbie fully committing to do most of her own stunt work. Like, I know that she did a pretty good chunk of it in Birds of Prey, but having not worked with Stahelski long term, she could only do so many things. Like, there were definitely moments where you could tell there was a stunt double in there. I don't know I'm sure Margot Robbie had a stunt double. But when you watch the movie, like, I don't know where the stunt double is. Like, Margot is full on. I mean, just about everybody on the cast is full in, locked in to do their own stunt work. And again, this is something else I've always said. If you get your actors to do the stunt work, the stunts play better because you can tell the person that's doing them, you know, is actually doing them. And it feels more real. It feels grittier. And all of that is the case with the action across the board. I think Robbie stands out far and away the most. The Harley Quinn action is amazing in this movie. But then, I mean, just everything that they asked these actors to do from a physical standpoint, like, it's just all impressive. And the different things that he has going on, like, this is a massive group, right? Like, there are so many villains here. And we knew that, I mean, look at all the people on this shirt. We knew that a lot of them were going to get taken out. And the way in which Gunn goes about taking out some of these characters is just wonderful. I mean, some of them are things that you see coming, or things that you at least expected. Like, there are definitely some characters in this movie that you did not expect to make it the whole way through. But how he chooses to take them out, oh man, there's some really enjoyable stuff. And he throws a few surprises. There were a couple people who either went down earlier or went down when I wasn't expecting them to go down. And like, multiple times in the movie, I was like, what? Like, oh, it was all really, really marvelous. And I can't say enough good things about what James Gunn did with this movie and the way that he decides to tell this story. The thing that I really dug is that it's simple. Like, the movie is batshit crazy, but it is simplistic. Like, the Suicide Squad has a goal. They gotta go into this building, destroy this building, shut down Operation Starfish. Like, very simple plot. And by the time you get to the end, you get to have a CGI fun fest with Starro. And that's what you're building to. But keeping it simple and putting in a couple twists. You know, I mean, you know Waller is always up to things. So, like, you're able to drop a couple of those in, but you're able to keep the story simple. So by the time you get to the really absurd and ridiculous stuff, it's not like you've been building out this movie that feels so real and tangible that, like, by the time you get to Starro, you're like, wait, what? I think keeping it simplistic and just allowing us to live with our Suicide Squad, was the exact thing you needed to do to make this movie work. And it's more like little character study bits, you know, like, there's not a lot of deep plot storyline stuff here, but you're able to flush out these characters, you're able to get to know them, specifically the new ones, and you're able to care about pretty much all of them. And all of that stuff from James Gunn is just top-notch stuff. Like, he knocks this thing completely out of the ballpark, and much like his cast has said, it's an impossible movie that I think only James Gunn could have done. Now, aside from just like being in love with James Gunn and what he can come up with in his mind and what he is able to do, I mean, like I said, just seeing some of the stuff, specifically DC Easter egg type things, just wonderful. But this cast is absolutely phenomenal. Now, like I said, there is a lot of them, so I'm not going to talk about all of them. The people who have small bit roles, who are simply there to be killed off, they all bring something to it. Like, everybody gets at least a moment in the movie to be like, yes, that's awesome for that guy. Oh, that's awesome for that guy. And the people that we don't get to spend a lot of time with, I enjoyed how they utilized them. I don't want to give away who we spend a short amount of time with and who we spend a long amount of time with and who dies and who doesn't die, because obviously that's part of the fun of the movie. So what I'm going to do for a non-spoiler is just talk about the folks that are on the screen. These are the folks that we've seen in most of the trailers, and these are the people and the characters that we were expecting to get lots of stuff from. Starting off with Margot Robbie, phenomenal. This might be her best outing as Harley Quinn yet. She just is so in tune to the character that they've developed for the movie franchise. I don't think that Margot's Harley is the perfect Harley Quinn. I think Kaylee Cuoco's is the best version of Harley we've ever seen, the animated show on HBO Max. But this version of Harley that Margot has taken, it hits all the things that make Harley Harley, and it allows Margot to just own this character in a way that very few actors get to own a character, and she has totally made it hers. And for what this character is, this I think is the best iteration that we've gotten. And Robbie, performance-wise, I think this is some of the best that we've gotten, because as I said, she does most of her own stunt work, and she brings the physicality. Like Birds of Prey, we got to see some really cool stuff from Margot Robbie, but you could tell, like I said, there was that stunt double definitely interchanging here and there. Here, we get sequences. There's one sequence in particular that's very similar to a sequence from Birds of Prey, and it plays so much better because the camera doesn't cut a lot. It stays on Robbie, and you can tell she's doing most of the work. So she absolutely blew me away, which is not shocking at all. That's the one thing I think you could definitely expect going into the Suicide Squad. But it was everybody else that showed up that really did something for me. Then, of course, you got Idris Elba as Bloodsport. Fantastic. I mean, when is Idris not fantastic? And I liked what they did with Bloodsport. Like, he's a guy who does not want to be there, so Waller has to find a reason to make him go. And this movie is worth this movie existing just for that moment where Waller forces Idris to go. That moment between Viola Davis and Idris Elba, from an acting standpoint, you want to talk about, being on edge. It is such a tense sequence, and those two are just powerhouse performers. That is one of the smallest scenes in the movie, and it's one that stands out far and away as the best. And it's because of what Viola Davis does, which we'll talk about her in a second, but it's also because of Idris. He brings a fire and a rage and an anger to the character that really, really works. And then all of the stuff they do with Bloodsport, and specifically how they tie him in with both Rick Flag and Peacemaker. I loved it. And there's a big rivalry between Peacemaker and Bloodsport through the whole movie. That's fantastic. And Idris just crushes everything that you want him to do in this movie. And he does a lot of different things. He has a really interesting relationship to Ratcatcher 2 that kind of builds throughout the movie that I really enjoyed. And like I said, just the way he interacts with everybody. Idris is Idris. He's the man. Now, speaking of some of the co-stars that he interacts with, Viola Davis. This might be the best version of Amanda Waller we've gotten. She captured that character in ways that were even better than the first time out. And when she did it the first time, it was like, holy crow, Viola Davis is Amanda Waller. And I think she's even better here. She really brings it. And I liked a lot what they did with Waller, and specifically what they do with Waller this time from, the control room. You see her interact with people in there some more. There are two characters we'll mention right at the end that are both comic accurate characters and people that I think we'll see going forward. But Davis crushes. John Cena. We gotta talk about John Cena and his Peacemaker. Oh my good God. I love to hate this dude. The concept of Peacemaker is just so well executed. A guy who will do anything to get peace. He wants peace, but he'll kill as many people as he has to get it. And that deranged element of the character is played perfectly both in the story and by John Cena. I mean, Cena, holy cow, man. I've always said, I prefer this guy to be in comedy movies because he has brilliant comedic timing. And a lot of that timing comes from being a wrestler and his career at the WWE. But that stuff always works the best. And as much as I like him in action because of that WWE background, he can do the big action sequences, when he's a super serious character, I don't like him as much as when he's not a super serious character. And Peacemaker allows John Cena to do all the things that John Cena is great at. His action stuff is fantastic. His humor and just delivery is so good. And the interactions between him and Idris Elba in particular are just fantastic. Like I said, that rivalry through the movie is brilliant, and I absolutely loved every second of it. Then, of course, we have our long-time friend, Colonel Rick Flag, played by Joel Kinneman. I mean, he is Rick Flag, right? Like, what if you liked what he did in the first movie, you're going to get a whole bunch more of it here. And I like Kinneman. I think he does a good job with the character. I like him as the leader, and I like the situations that he's put in this movie. Like, as a team leader, he gets put in a couple interesting situations because of how the story and the operation works. And getting to see Kinneman do that stuff was fun. So I certainly, as always, enjoyed Rick Flag. There's also, again, his relationship with Harley. I really like that. And that's one of those things that Gunn took from that first movie and brought it over that I thought worked really well in here and really made certain elements of that story hit. Let's see, who are we left? Yes, my man. Mr. David Dastmalchian as Polka Dot Man. Yes. Everything I wanted from that character, I got. Now, they take a little bit of a different take on the polka dot power, but I thought it was cool and it worked perfectly for what they needed to do in the movie. To try to adapt it comic accurately would have been really, really weird. And part of me was hoping that Gunn would take that swing because he's the guy that could pull off the comic accurate portrayal of Polka Dot Man, but I thought the way that they used it here worked really well, and it allowed Dastmalchian to do the things that I love Dastmalchian doing. And that's weird stuff, man. Like, he is a very weird character, but at the same time, he's probably the most earnest and grounded of everybody in the group. And I just liked what they gave him, and the way he plays oddball, and the way he has some of these serious, more grounded moments in the movie just really played well for me. And there is a thing to his character that had me laughing my ass. And that's the other thing I don't think I talked about at all yet. The humor in this movie is phenomenal front to back. Like, James Gunn delivers brilliant humor. A lot of it through Polka Dot Man. There's one thing in particular that had me in stitches every time it popped up in the movie, but the humor throughout the entire film is just great. You will laugh a lot. I mean, I was smiling ear to ear, man. Like, whether it's the action or the visuals or the story or the humor, like, you are just in a good mood this whole movie. And speaking of humor, my MVP in the humor category is, of course, Mr. King Shark, voiced by Sylvester Stallone. This might be the best thing Sly's ever done. I'm sorry, Rocky fans. I'm a huge Rocky fan. I love Sly as Rocky, but, like, I don't know, man. There's something about this voice performance that's just, like, I want it. I want it all the time. King Shark was easily my favorite character in this movie. Any chance he gets to do anything is great. And I love the way that Gunn visualizes him. Like, there are elements to him, like the way he moves. There's one moment where he kind of like makes a rush towards somebody. The way he moves is so cool. Like, it's shark-like, but if a shark had legs. Like, it's wild. But the way he moves, his action, like, everything around King Shark is wonderful, and Sly knocked it out the ballpark. But there is one character that we have not touched on yet, and she is my MVP of the movie. The best thing that James Gunn does in this movie is this character, and the way he utilizes this character, and the actor behind this character. All wows. Just wow, wow, wow. I'm going to say her name wrong, but I'm going to try to say it as close to right as possible. Daniela Melchior. Wow. Ratcatcher 2 was not a character expected to pop. Like, I figured we were going to get like a nice emotional beat between her and Idris because we saw that in the trailers. But she is my favorite character in the whole movie. She pops in ways where, like, this girl is about to become a superstar. Like, get ready to look out for her everywhere. She is so good, and there's so much nuance to her performance as Ratcatcher that, like, every time she's on screen, you can't look away from her, and you're in absolute awe. Like, it's wild how much I loved Ratcatcher 2, and specifically what they do with that story. There's a cool surprise that's tied into that story that I loved, and just the way that she uses the rat. She has a rat named Sebastian in the movie. The interactions with the rat are phenomenal. That chemistry and relationship with Bloodsport, and just her and Idris on camera together is something special every single time it happens, and it's a character that, like I said, I was not expecting a lot out of, or really to take a lot away from. Yet at the end of the movie, my MVP was Ratcatcher 2. She's absolutely phenomenal, and Daniela Melchior deserves all the credit in the world. She crushed this thing. And as I said, the rest of the cast is also fantastic, but I don't want to give anything away as to what happens with any of these characters, so we will talk about them when we talk about spoilers. But there's some fun stuff with some of the other characters and how they're utilized throughout the course of the movie. But the folks that we see on the poster are obviously the folks that we get to spend the most time with during the course of the movie, and they all crush. This cast is amazing. The story just worked. Starro, I never thought that we would ever see Starro on the big screen, let alone portrayed so perfectly. And the way in which Gunn opts to tell that story and how it works, man, like, it really, really worked for me. Like, it was one of those things where I was like, I'm just going to get excited to see Starro on the big screen, but, like, the story beats for the character really worked. There's a line that we get right at the end of the movie where I was like, wow. Like, you just made that character mean so much more than it meant before that line is delivered. Like, man, everything that James Gunn touches, man, is something special. And if Warner Brothers and DC are smart, they will not let that guy leave. And they will continue to give him more Suicide Squad. Just give him different members to kill off, give him different people to bring back. Like, I'm here for anything Suicide Squad related as long as James Gunn is attached to it. And I would love to see James Gunn do more inside the DC universe. I think there are some really nice spots throughout all of DC that Gunn would work really well for, and I hope Warner Brothers keeps him in-house, and only kind of lets him bounce off to Marvel for Guardians 3 and then doesn't let him leave. As much as I want him back at Marvel, like, DC needs a guy like this on their creative team, and this is a big win for just everybody on that side of the fence. So for me, if you couldn't tell, I loved the Suicide Squad. I really don't have anything negative to say. Like, it's just, it gave me everything I was looking for and then some. And really, the surprises are the thing that like, really makes this movie work, because nobody's safe. That's all I'll say. Nobody's safe. But yeah, man, I absolutely loved it. I'm going to stop talking because I've already been talking for way too long, and we will definitely dive into more of this as we go ahead with some spoiler content. So for the non-spoiler stuff, I'm done. I don't want to give anything away. I don't want to spoil anything. I've probably come real close a couple times, but hopefully it maintains all of the surprises if you haven't seen the movie. So you know what time it is. It's time to give this bad boy a score. Let's get the old C-Maniacs on up. We're going to keep this short and sweet because you already know what I'm thinking. I love this thing start to finish, man. James Gunn crushes in every aspect, from technical to story to visual effects and action. The cast is phenomenal. The story works, and this is exactly what you wanted to see with the Suicide Squad. So for the old C-Man, Suicide Squad is getting a big old 5 C-Maniacs out of 5. This movie was stellar, phenomenal, the perfect kind of movie for this guy. So for me, it gets a perfect score. But now that I am done talking, it's your turn. If you haven't seen the movie, is this something that's on your list? Is this something that hearing me go crazy about it has now put it on your list? Is this something you're interested in? What are you thinking if you haven't seen the Suicide Squad? What are you looking forward to? What are you hoping for? And knowing what I've just said, how are you feeling about the movie? And if you have experienced the Suicide Squad. First, let me know where you watched it. Was it at home on your couch? Was it out at the movie theater? IMAX? 4DX? How did you watch the movie? What did you think about the movie? What was working? Do you want to see James Gunn do more of this? What character popped the best for you? Was Ratcatcher 2 your MVP, or was it somebody different? Anything you're thinking, good, bad, indifferent, about the Suicide Squad, down below in the comments section. Look forward to talking to you down there. As always, if you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up. And if you're new, you want to come hang out with the C-Man anytime. We're talking movies, TV, trailer, reactions. You want to be here for my spoiler content coverage of the Suicide Squad. You want to know all the people that die. You want to find out how I think about all of those things, or just anything in this realm of the cinema sit-down. You want to show a little love and support to this guy you haven't yet? Well, come. Join C-Maniac Nation by jumping over there, hitting that subscribe button, hit that little bell if you want those alerts. And until next time, for the C-Man Cinema Sit Down, I've been the C-Man, and I am signing off. Peace.
Oh, hey, what's going on? You must be sticking around because you're looking for more content featuring this guy. Well, guess what? You're in the right place. You can check out more videos right here and right here. And if you have and you want to come join that C-Maniac Nation, you can hit that subscribe right over there.